Okay, so today we're going to be talking about fractions, and I just want to introduce a different way so that you could really, understand fractions. So in this video today, we're going to talk about fractions, the parts of a fraction, the numerator and the denominator, the classification of fractions, and that consists of proper fractions, improper fractions, mixed numbers, and equivalent fractions. So first, I'm gonna start off describing a fraction, and I am going to give an example of a numerator and a denominator. And as my definitions say, the numerator is the top number, so that 3 will be the numerator, and the bottom number is the denominator. We have to really understand the terminology, the mathematical terminology when we're talking about these things, because that just helps you to understand it better. If I just start talking about numerators and denominators, people are still going to be confused because some don't remember, what a numerator or a denominator is. So normally, when fractions are introduced, teachers describe fractions with shapes. So they might draw a square and say, I want to represent this as a fraction. I'm going to divide it into 4 pieces, and then I'm going to shade in 3 of them. Or I could represent a fraction with a whole circle, and I am still going to cut that into 4 pieces and shade in 3 of them, right? So what I think confuses people is that fractions are used to describe anything, that does not make a whole. So we don't have to talk about shapes. We don't have to describe it with shapes. I think that's what confused people. And I also think that, when you're talking about wholes, you could represent fractions many different ways, with a different number being the numerator, a different number being the denominator, and it still represents the same value. The denominator is the most important number in the fraction. And this is because it tells you how many pieces you broke your whole into. So just like for those examples that I just showed you, I broke my wholes into 4 sections, but I don't have to break my whole up into 4 sections. Just think about if, I had a whole pizza. I could break it into 4s if I want. I could cut my pizza into 4s. If I want to have the pizzeria cut my pizza into 8s, I could cut it into 8s. I could even cut those pieces into more sections. If I have 16 people, I could have them cut my, pizza up into 16 pieces. My pieces would be a lot smaller. But if I wanted to share with 16 people, I could just cut my whole up into 16 pieces. In all actuality, I still have that same amount of pizza. I don't have anything more, anything less. So if I wrote it using those different sections as my denominator, I will also have to use different numbers, to represent my numerator. So we're going to get into that a little bit later into this video. What I want to do is just use something a little bit more tangible so that you could really understand what a fraction is. So I want you to imagine you have 14 quarters and you want to write this as a mixed number. Okay, so the first thing you will do is see how many wholes you have in your total. So just imagine you have 14 quarters and you want to write this as a mixed number. The first thing that you would do is just see how many whole dollars you would have. So I would count, and I'm just going to slide my quarters over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, that's $1. And then I would do it again. So I would have $3 whole here. So I'm just going to write that $3 whole. But as you see, I still have 2 quarters here. Okay, I have to write that in some type of way. I can't just throw those quarters away. I have to have a way to describe how much change I have left. Okay, so since I would need another 2 quarters to represent a whole dollar, my denominator, that means I broke my whole dollar up into 4 sections. So my denominator will represent that. It will let somebody know that I broke my dollar up into quarters. Then I have 2 left. So this is written as a fraction. I will have $3 in 2 quarters. So so now we're going to refer back to the definition, and we're going to talk about improper fractions, mixed numbers, and proper fractions. So as an improper fraction, you will have more than one whole, and all the parts or pieces are written over the denominator, which will make the numerator, the top number, bigger than the denominator, the bottom number. So if I want to write that same, I'm still talking about 3. I'm still talking about that same 14 quarters here. So I have 3 2/4, right? If I represent this as an improper fraction, I just want to get all of my quarters together and represent that over the denominator. So all together, I have 14 quarters. So that would make my numerator, my top number, bigger than my denominator because I have more than one whole dollar. In this scenario, I have 3 whole dollars. So to write that as an improper fraction, my numerator is going to be larger than my denominator. As a mixed number, it's already written as a mixed number. So a mixed number is a whole number and a fraction written together. So I have a whole number of 3, and then my fraction would be 2/4. A proper fraction is when the numerator is smaller than the denominator and is usually written in simplest form. So if I'm talking about a proper fraction, it's usually less than a whole, but I could write 3 2/4 as a proper fraction as well, because I know I have $3.50. This still would be equivalent to $3.50. I am going to refer back to the definition again, and I am going to talk about how we could break our whole dollar up into different pieces and represent that same amount of money a different way. Okay, so the first time we broke it up into quarters. So we had 3 2/4. But we could also break our dollars up into pennies. So I will have 100 pennies. And if I still had 50 cents, I will represent the amount of pennies, as 50 over 100. I could break my dollar up into nickels. Okay, we still talking about the same 50 cents. I will have 10 nickels out of 20. I could also break my dollar up into dimes, and I will have 5 dimes. And I could break my dollar up into quarters. In all actuality, I still had that same 50 cents or half of a dollar. So all of these fractions here can be written as half. And all of these fractions are equivalent to one another. So now we're going to talk about how could I get from 50 over 100 to 1/2. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to take a number that is divisible by 50 and by 100. And those are called factors. What can go into 50 and go evenly into that 100? I know that 50 is divisible by 50. And I will have to, whatever I divide my numerator by, I will have to divide the denominator by as well. So 50 divided by 50 would give me 1. And 100 divided by 50 would give me 2. So that's one way that I could get to a half. I am going to use 50 again, because 50 over 100 again, because I may not have picked 50 in the beginning. Maybe I'll pick 25. I know that 50 divided by 25 is equal to 2. And 100 divided by 25 is equal to 4. So I still have 2/4 here. But that is not in simplest form here. So I could still divide this 2 and the 4 by 2. 2 divided by 2 would give me 1. And 4 divided by 2 would give me 2. So it still would equal 1/2. Same scenario if I have 10 out of 20. I would just get a number that goes into both of these numbers. In these cases, the numerator is being used to divide both numbers, but that is not always the case. So here I could divide, I know that 10 goes evenly into 10 and 10 goes evenly into 20 as well. So I could divide both numbers by 10. 10 divided by 10 is equal to 1, and 20 divided by 10 is equal to 2. So that is still 1/2. Same thing if I have 5 dimes. I would divide this by 5 here. That would equal 1/2. And if you see the pattern here, you see that 10 is half of 20, 5 is half of 10. So it does not matter what we broke our whole up into. We just want to use a half of it. Same scenario if I had a pizza and I broke it up into 4 sections. My denominator would be written with a 4. And if I use half of it, I need to use 2. So that would be written with 2/4. If I broke my pizza up into 8 slices, okay, my denominator would be written with an 8. But now I use 1, 2, 3, 4 to represent that same 1/2. It is the same thing written in a different way, and 4 is half of 8. I am going to clear this because I want to just discuss how we will find factors of numbers, just in case we didn't see the greatest common factors in our head. Okay, so the first thing we would do when we're trying to simplify a fraction is, and I am going to give another fraction. I'm gonna say 12/15 here. Just say I have 12 out of 15. I am looking for a number that both of these numbers can be divided by. It has to be the same number for the numerator and the same number for the denominator. So if I didn't see automatically that that was 3, what I can do is find all of my factors of 12, and then find all of my factors of 15. So normally I would create a T-chart. And the reason why I do create these T-charts, and I do like these T-charts, is because you can use the T-charts for many different concepts in math. It's not to just find the factors, or it's not just used to create equivalent fractions. It could also be used in algebra. So that's why I like to teach with the T-charts. It's easy to me, and it gives you the factors in pairs. So for 12, you always start out with 1. So 1 times 12, you're looking for two numbers that's multiplied by each other that's going to equal that top number. So 1 times 12 is 12. Then you go to the next number. 12 is even, so I could divide 12 by 2. 12 by 2 is 6. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Okay? Then I go to my next number, and I just go in order so that I don't leave out any factors. So I'm going to the 3. Is 12 divisible by 3? Yes, it is. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. And then when I get to the next number, it will be 4. And because I already have a 4 written here, that is it. Those are all of my factors of 12. And then I'm going to do the same thing for 15, okay? And just like I said last time, we start off with 1 and 15. 15 is not even, so I could skip 2. But 15 is divisible by 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5. It's not divisible by 4. And like I said, when I get to 5, it starts over, so we could stop right there. These are all of my factors of 15. So now I'm looking for the greatest common factor, the greatest factor that's on each side, and that is 3. Okay, so here I will use the 3. $12 divided by 3 will give me 4. And then 15 divided by 3 would give me 5. See how easy that is if I use a T-chart. So 12/15 can be broken down to 4/5.